Hello, everybody. So I was listening to a podcast. I think it was last Saturday. I like go for a run first thing in the morning when I'm off, and put a podcast on when I'm running. And it's by I think I've harped on about it quite a bit before. Actualize.org is the website. It's a guy called Leo who does really long kind of advanced videos on YouTube about spirituality and just actualization. Fear. Just check it out. But the video was just about wisdom, and the first part, the first words he uttered were, um, "To become wise, study the consequence of fools." And immediately, I thought about the Lorne situation, and it kind of, it kind of made me feel a little bit validated in all the time and effort I've put into the Lorne sort of saga, if you will, is because I do question myself quite often and go, what the fuck am I doing? But of course, I kind of like, I was happy when I heard that because I was like, yeah, there's a reason why I've spent so much time looking at him, analysing his behaviour, um, looking at his mind structures, and it is. There's many reasons why people are interested in Lorne. It's like if you look at the videos on the channels, the sort of Lornography channels on YouTube, including mine, the ones that are the most popular are the ones that just involve the Lorne calls. Usually, not always, but as a general rule, I think any content creator would agree when the channel is, mainly based around, predators and Lorne and things like that. The Lorne calls are always the most, usually the most popular ones, content about Lorne. I think the one with the stream that we've done, like with Shin and Tiffany and Amanda James, like over the last few months, the one that's had the most views, I think, is the one that we called, what was it now? The Unpunished Crimes of Lorne Armstrong. That was it. I think it's, I don't know exactly, like 3 or 4 thousand, which obviously is not a huge amount. But I think it's had more views than a lot of the other ones. Now, obviously, it's quite a provocative title, that, the Unpunished Crimes of Lorne, but anything that's mainly centred around Lorne and his antics generates so much interest, and there's many reasons for it. People love. He's ridiculously entertaining to listen to for various reasons. His drunkenness, um, he's highly amusing. You're in a state of bewilderment listening to him. You're like, fucking hell, a guy like exists like this. It's remarkable. There is a reason that we're all interested in this guy, but there's many different reasons why people are. Some of it's really like lowbrow stuff. Like it really shocks me, the fucking mentality of some people that hang around this so-called community, and some, fucking hell, they'll put in the comments, see, I told you he was a obsessive person, what he said about that woman. Well, fuck me, of course he is. I mean, Christ, everything that you need to know about him is contained within the segment on To Catch a Predator. But people just want to hear the worst out of him, more and more extreme. It's bizarre. It's like the stuff with Ramona when that was going on. It was to see how far that they could push him, which is when I sort of thought, where's this fucking going, this? And I didn't agree with it. I don't want to start a big thing about it, but, each to their own. I just thought it was cruel. It was like, let's psychologically fucking destroy this guy. And of course, after he's done what he's done, he's got no defense really. And you can't. It's not a point of sticking up for the guy. It's just like saying, my take is, it's not up to us to be judge, jury, and executioner. What he's paid his debt. Maybe it's time to just let him crack on. But that, like I said, we'll be doing. I know I keep saying this, but eventually we will do a big stream with many people involved about the rights and wrongs of it all, because my perspective is just my perspective, and there's people that I consider friends that have a totally different perspective, and it's fun to explore that. So but the kind of people, a certain amount of people just want him. They want him to suffer, and they get gratification from listening to him suffer. They get gratification from him being, a really bad person towards women, and he shouts and is abusive. Perfect example is all the racism stuff that happened a while ago. When I never heard the comment, but apparently he said something along the lines of, to Ramona, "You don't sound like you're black," or something. I mean, fucking hell, if that had happened now. Jesus. But that wasn't, in my view, a racist comment. But it was built up as such. And then it was like a mob mentality of, see, he's racist. It was like, well, there's that's no evidence to suggest he is. He fucking, maybe. From what I heard of him, he didn't appear to be. But he may be. Apparently he said something a while ago, like a year or so ago, when he used I believe he might have used the N-word. I never heard it. I don't know. But that told me a lot about the sort of the mob mentality of and of course with Lorne, he's a fucking sex offender. He's trying to sleep with a child. He hasn't got a leg to stand on. I know it's not like, and this is why I got ultimately what led to my channel getting taken down is because it was seen that if I'm suggesting another perspective, people don't want to hear it. Not everybody, and most people listening to my channel, and I'm not just saying this because you're fucking here, are open-minded. You wouldn't listen to my stuff if you weren't a little bit open-minded, because there's plenty of other channels out there that just basically, they're just hate-mongering. I don't know them personally. I'm obviously not referring to Clobbering Time or anything like that. He just kind of, he's got all the cause and just has fun with the community, and he's very good at that. That's not, and I listen to it as well. But there are some channels out there that kind of that prey on the kind of hate element of it. It's like, right, just do a video for half an hour or whatever, and just call someone a monster. And of course, that's there is a place for that. These people have to be identified as being what they are, because that then protects people, and that creates awareness. But when it becomes dysfunctional is when a guy's already been hung, drawn and quartered, but yet people won't leave him alone. It's like, well, where are you going with this? You've really got to ask yourself a question. This isn't me going overboard with my spirituality stuff. You've really got to ask yourself a very, very important question and be honest with yourself. What is it about all this, about the Lorne business, that you like? Do you take pleasure in someone else's suffering? Do you feel that it's justice being served? Do you find it funny? Do you find it interesting? Do you like studying the criminal mind? And that is what I'm leading up to eventually. The number one thing that got me interested in all of this is that when I saw that segment first on To Catch a Predator, and it was the line that, "I wish I could marry you right now," as soon as I saw that, I was like, this is somebody different. This is a different scenario. This is really fucking interesting. Because I cannot for the life of me remember that Bowling Green episode may have been the first one I've seen. I do not remember. I think I was around at a friend's house, and we were watching it, and I remember his words, and he said it's strangely alluring to watch this, because it was like a little bit of forbidden TV, really, in a way. It's like, fucking hell, they're catching these predators and exposing them, and I'm getting satisfaction from watching it. But yeah, like, and you see all kinds of other creepy guys, your sort of stereotypical child predators that they warned you about when you was a kid. Someone that looks like one, I would say, I don't know, that's that Pickles geezer called Lee Greer. He looks like, overweight, glasses, bald, unattractive, no charm, scruffy as fuck. Just a fucking not right. You know what I mean? I hope you like my Manchester slang. So them are people you would expect. Lorne doesn't, from the offset, look specifically like a child predator. He looks like a strange guy, but I don't think you'd walk past him in the street and go weirdo. Not, but I mean, but that line, "I wish I could marry you right now," there was just something that said to me. He believed when he was when he wrote that. It was just the way. Obviously, there's nothing to say it wasn't a lie to entice, because that's what a lot of predators do. They love bomb. Dusty McFetridge did it, didn't he, in the chat log? But you could see straight through it. I do truly believe Lorne sort of convinced himself that he loved this girl. It's a very interesting aspect of the psychology, because the thing is, the human mind, I read this in, I can't remember, it was one of the spiritual books I was reading, that said that the human mind is the same in everybody. And it doesn't mean we're all identical in the way that we think and our minds operate, but the human mind, regardless of how it is used, is the same human mind across all our species. So we're all susceptible to its tendencies and its ego manipulation and all the kind of things that we have to be wary of. So when I look at him, to study those aspects of what would lead someone into that situation, is to understand more about your own mind, and that will lead to a more actualized and higher quality life. And that is the number one aspect of all of this. Now, I think everybody will agree. You might not agree with the sort of spiritual aspect I bring to this and the psychology, but I do have a good sense of humour, so I don't take it all too seriously. The humour, I'm going to do a video just on humour, actually. Just on the humour side of it, and approach it from that aspect. It's a part of life. It's not lost on me, but I also have that balance where I'm interested in the deeper. This is why I'm interested in his past. And I remember even talking to Shin about it, and he said since he started going down the Lorne rabbit hole, he's become a better person. It'd be interesting to talk to him more about that in a stream, actually. But when, as this sort of title of this video, and in his kind of failings, it's very easy to just go, oh yeah, he fucks up, let's laugh at him, which of course we can do, and it's funny. But why? Lorne, you see, the thing is, the traits that Lorne has is resourceful, and he's an hard worker to some degree. He's lazy in a lot of aspects, but he's lazy in that he won't do the self-inquiry, he won't do the self-improvement that's necessary to improve his life, but he will do a day's graft. He will work. There's people out there that won't. People out there that won't have gotten themselves into the situation that Lorne did, because they wouldn't have got off their ass. Well, not got off their ass, but they wouldn't have put all the work in what Lorne did to get Kayla, or what he thought. That was a month-long scheming, manipulative endeavour to sleep with a 13-year-old girl. So his resourcefulness and his kind of that sort of day's work that he's got in him is embedded within that chat log. He wasn't going to do all that and put himself in that situation if he didn't think he was going to get something out of it. And there's people like Lorne out there that have this attraction to children that wouldn't put the work in to do that. But Lorne did. However, and it was put to me this way by Lockhart when we were chatting a little bit before one of the streams a couple of weeks ago, is that Lorne, and it was brilliantly put, I'm glad she's kind of mentioned it to me, it was another perspective, is that the reason that Lorne's so funny in the lawsuit, which I believe, I genuinely believe this, I think his writings in those lawsuits are quite possibly the funniest thing that's ever been put on paper, without a doubt, in my opinion. He thinks he's a step ahead of everybody, but ends up completely fucking up. Like, he thinks he's one step ahead, but he's a million steps behind, and that's what makes it so funny with everything that he does. The chat log, he thought he was one step ahead of the cops. We're going to fake a breakup. He thought he was one step ahead of the parents. He thought he was one step ahead of Kayla. He thought he was one step ahead of the neighbours in the neighbourhood where she was. He thought he was one step ahead of everybody, and he ended up just failing spectacularly, which is why I have this video in the background, because that is the manifestation of total failure in life to a massive degree. And he kind of, you look at his life since then, and this is where we've got all the information from. So we have the chat log, which is just I apologise for who said it, and it is someone who comments a lot, so I'm sorry, but someone said a while ago in comments on one of my videos that the holy pornography is a psychologist's or a psychiatrist's wet dream. You're always playing psychologist, Peter. And it's true, but as well as that, we've got all the phone calls, you've got all the new material, you've got the lawsuits, you've got so much to look at this guy, and look at the fact that with everything that he tries to do, it ends up having completely the opposite effect than what he intended. And it's arrogance. So he thinks he's one step ahead of everybody, which means that he's arrogant. Because that means he doesn't think he's got anything to learn from anybody else. He thinks he's got it all figured out. And he thinks that he's hard done to, that everybody's conspired against him. So there's no responsibility, because he lacks the courage and the wisdom to do any real introspection, and that is so fucking important. Huge. I cannot overstate it. You've consistently, it doesn't matter what's going on outside you, really. It all is about what's going on in you. The universe is an inner phenomenon. Everything that happens is inside you. You receive messages external, and it's all processed in you. The world, politics, all that kind of stuff. Politics is huge, and most of us, I'm pretty sure nobody listening to this is a politician. Ultimately, there's very little you can do to influence. You can vote, and you could protest, things like that. But you've got to know your place. But the amount of time people get sucked into, chatting shite on Facebook and arguing with people who have a different political view than them is remarkable. That's just one of the traps you can fall into. I understand why people are passionate about it, and of course, there's nothing wrong with having an opinion, but you've really got to temper it so carefully. Look at that. Look at what's on screen now. Head in his hands. I assume. Just turn the audio on a minute. Can you hear him crying? Can you hear me chewing? That is the that's why that's just the what's the word I'm looking for, the total sort of example of true failure of a man, of a middle-aged, of a youngish middle-aged man in life. So the kind of introspection that's so important to someone's life, Lorne does zero of. Absolutely none. And it's down to his arrogance. It's down to him, like I said, believing that he's one step ahead. But yet he's not. Because, so he's not able to change. Because, like I said, we can't. Everything that we have to, it's all in tandem with taking responsibility. Everything that happens that you would think isn't your fault, you've got to take responsibility for. So the breakup of a marriage, if someone cheats on you in the most horrendous way, on you, with your brother or your sister, whatever, that would, I know people that's happened to. You've got to ask yourself, it doesn't mean that you don't identify when someone's done you harm, but you have to learn the lessons from that and go, right, well, how did I trust that person implicitly when clearly they weren't trustworthy? What is it? What are the failings in my character that has led to that? What is it that I wasn't giving that person? Is it me that's drove them to that? On the surface, you would think that's a terrible situation, but it could be that person was violent, even abusive, really kind of not giving that person what they needed. And as part of a relationship, you've got to do that. But let's just say that it was someone who was, a nice guy and he didn't do anything wrong, but that happened to him and his missus cheated on him with a brother or something. There's two ways of going down that. He could either become ridiculously bitter and angry and twisted and hateful, which would be the normal human response, or you could turn inward and go and feel the grief, go through that. That's important. You can't suppress your emotions, you've got to deal with it, but really look at yourself. It's like a friend of mine, it's not really fair to go into detail actually about that. No, I can touch upon it briefly. His missus really, I'm not going to go into detail, but his wife really fucked him over big time, and I fucking mean big time. And I'm not just saying this. I remember the first time I ever met her, and I knew straight away there was something not right about her. I could just tell in the way that she acted. And it was the first time we'd ever met her, and she gave me this look when we were round at his house, because I'd not met her before. It was before they actually got married. Because I remember I was retelling the story of one of my crazy antics that I got up to on a night out, and she was like looking at me in a affectionate way. I was like, this is weird. Now I wasn't in a position to say, and I wasn't entirely accurate that was the right way of interpreting it, but obviously I do believe it was. And I just remember I could never connect with her. I remember on the wedding day I was like, and then it just went horribly wrong a year after that. Now, my friend isn't the first to be blindsided with a partner, and he has since. And I don't, that there's been, and he's dealt with it. Luckily for him, he's a really great guy, and he's not a bitter and angry person. There is still a lot inside him that he's got to deal with, but ultimately it didn't send him down the dark path, which is the way that you could go. Lorne's reactions to those situations are legendary, aren't they? Because of all the catfishing and all that kind of stuff, and most of it I've not listened to. It must be 99% of the catfishing calls I've never heard, but I've seen people's comments to them, and listening to the odd sort of soundbite. Of course, he's brought to the brink of rage, isn't he? And one of the reasons I'm not keen on those is they're all fabricated situations, aren't they? I was really interested in the Tiffany calls because we really got, No one put it to him to try to get him to see the truth. No one did that. I mean, I think Ramona did it a couple of times, and I will always admit that some of the early Ramona stuff, before I realised where it was going, is brilliant. Like, some of the reactions you get from him, I can't deny that I find them entertaining. If that makes me an hypocrite, so fucking be it. But his life has never moved on because he can't take responsibility and because he can't do any introspection. That is fucking massively. It's not massive, it's fundamental to success. Fundamental. And success doesn't mean that you have to be a billionaire tycoon. Success is finding a balance. You can have people that are millionaires and billionaires and their lives have been a dramatic fit. Look at Epstein. Would you say that his life was a failure? Ended up either getting murdered or killing himself in a prison cell after he left a path of destruction in his wake. And, just make your own mind up. Is that a life of success? It's about finding the balance, isn't it? So you've got to contribute something positive. It doesn't matter how big and how small. And then you've got to find some kind of contentment. You've got to do something maybe creative and form meaningful relationships and be healthy. You've got to try and find that balance of doing that. And if any of those are a bit out of sync, there'll be suffering. In one form or another, there just will be. And it's harder and harder in some respects today because there's so many distractions. And it's part of the temptations that we're here to kind of... It's part of life. It's challenging for a reason. If it wasn't challenging, what would be the fucking point? If we were born and all of your needs were met and there wasn't any choice of dysfunction, it would be a pointless endeavour. It's a little bit like when you're playing a game. I play this space strategy game every few weeks because it's nice to relax. And when I'm playing it and I'm building my kind of empire, there's no enemies attacking me. And I'm like, this sucks. It's boring. It's like this pointless playing unless you've got enemies attacking you. You don't realise, like, you build your fleets, and I've got all these massive fleets of battles, and I'm like, oh, look at my empire now. I'm kick-ass. Nobody's going to be like, actually, what's the fucking point? I need battles. I need something to do. And it's the same with life. You need challenges. All the things that... Even, like, with the Lorneography saga, like, the reason I say ask yourself a question of why you're into it, how much time are you spending listening to Lorne calls? Is that really an effective way of using your time? Could you not be doing something, could you not be reading, learning something, doing something creative, exercising? There's a million and one things to do. There's nothing wrong with listening to it every now and again if it's a good way for you to relax, if you find it therapeutic. But there is, without a doubt, some dysfunction if it's done too much. And there's like, no. I was watching we had a thing in England, Top of the Pops, so it was like a weekly music show where, it was like the top 40 singles and people would come on and sing and all that bollocks. I don't know if you've heard of it or not, but I was watching it the other day, a rerun from the 80s. Was it the 80s? Early 90s, and everybody was like dead happy. They were in the crowd, and I just got this sense that people were happy back then. It just looked that way. Everybody was enjoying life, and the show was a celebration of life, and everybody were dancing, and it was great. And it was like, I don't see that anymore. Now, whether that's because I've come older and I don't, that's generally what happens, isn't it, when you get a bit older and you kind of look back, oh, those were the good old days. I don't know whether anybody agrees. But now there's so many more distractions to, why do you think Netflix emails all the time, watch this and carry on watching this and carry on watching that, and we've got this great show and we've got that great show. Netflix wants you to sit there and watch it all day, every day. That's not healthy. Nothing wrong with a bit of escapism. But really, as a general rule, we shouldn't be watching shit like that. reading is massively superior to watching things on your TV as a main form of entertainment. Reading is healthy for you. If you're reading novels, it helps with empathy because you see things from other perspectives when you're looking at it through the eyes of the characters. You're picturing scenes in your mind, so it helps with your imagination. It stimulates neurons in your brain and forms new neural pathways when you read, because reading is something that as humans we've evolved. Our brains have evolved for to incorporate language into our lives. So that's why very young children are very, very good at picking up language, and they do it very easily. They mimic the parents, and within a few years they can speak and understand and comprehend language. It's remarkable because we've evolved that way. We haven't evolved to read. Reading is something that's only existed for a few thousand years. I'm not sure exactly how long, but that's why learning to read is quite a lengthy sort of lesson, if you will. When you're a kid, the English lessons take quite a while because it's something that it's an extra kind of curriculum. It's obviously massively important because you're kind of evolving that way. Going a bit deep with this. That's why it's so healthy. It's massively important. I know I'm always going on about reading, but I enjoy it. It's got to the point now where binge watching Netflix doesn't interest me. I have Netflix because there's some fucking good stuff on there, like brilliant documentaries. And what was the last drama I watched? Every now and again I'll go and watch an old episode of Breaking Bad. Don't get me wrong, there's some stuff out there that has to be watched. Making a Murderer, I know that's a documentary, but everybody has to see that. I watched it wasn't on Netflix, I had to pay it on Amazon, but I watched the Spike Lee documentary on the making of the Michael Jackson Bad album. Brilliant. There's nothing wrong with it every now and but as a general rule, reading is much healthier, much better for you. Anyway, I'm rabbiting on about that, but it's one of the temptations to just sit there and binge watch Netflix all day. It's up to you to decide if that's a good way, but that's how difficult life is, and it's one of the temptations that, like addictions to, what does Lorne suffer from? Why is Lorne, another reason why Lorne's life is something that we've talked about often, is he's got an addictive personality. Don't know whether he still smokes, I can only assume he does. He's addicted to smoking, he's addicted to drinking, as are millions upon millions of people in the world, because it is the alcohol thing is I'm so glad I've broken that kind of, I suppose it was an addiction for a time. I smoked as well, so I'm not fucking completely slagging off everybody that does that, because I suppose I'll be slagging off myself. We're all part of the same thing, but Lorne's kind of, if I was in his position and have his backstory, I don't know how I would handle it. He handles it because he doesn't see it how we do. His version, the narrative that he's created in his mind, is very, very different from reality. Very different. The lawsuits tell you everything that you need to know about that. They tell you he thinks he's been wronged, everything's conspired against everybody, every entity is at blame, and it goes back to the lack of responsibility. So any normal person, well, not any normal person, but someone who wanted to improve himself after this interview that you see on your screen now, will go, oh my God. If he had a moment of enlightenment, he'd go, shit, what have I become? What do I need? Right, okay, do I have a establishing if he had an attraction towards children, it would be very difficult because he'd have to label himself as a predator and potentially a pedo at that point. But some people do that. Some people have got that good a self-inquiry and that honest with themselves that they can look at that honestly and get treatment. Lorne can't even admit that, which is why he keeps failing the class. But someone would have gone, right, how did he end up here? Right, okay, well, I scanned an old couple, I came here, I avoided all my responsibilities, everybody else is the enemy. I preyed upon a young kid, I was manipulating her to get my own sadistic needs met. Fucking hell, can you imagine? You'd have to completely change everything. Everything, you know. And he didn't even, not only did he not do, he kind of went the opposite way and went deeper and deeper into silliness and into just a complete, you know, that lawsuit had completely the opposite effect on what he intended because it was so stupid. Because it's crazy, it really is. But it is funny, you know, female powers and unintentional travel, it's just gold. Absolute gold. It really is. Kind of went over a lot of this, and, you know, when I do the Lornography Life Lessons videos, it's because that it touches upon I try to touch upon one subject in that Lorne messes up, which is everything. Every aspect of his life he does wrong. So really, to study him and realise where he goes wrong, we can all kind of, that's the wisdom that you can gain by studying how he ended up on that screen. It's remarkable, you know, and he's had... But there's also another way of looking at this as well. And it's one of the reasons why I don't necessarily conform to the catfishing, is because you can make an error yourself with all of this. And to miss out on potential wisdom is that one of Lorne's errors is that he judges people and situations far too easily without having the wisdom to look deeper. And we have the potential to do that looking at Lorne. So we shouldn't judge him. And that doesn't mean that you don't identify what he is. And he is a child predator, and he's not a good person, and he's untrustworthy, and he's a scammer. He's a bad... Everything that he does is that, you know, I can't find any positive personal traits about him. By saying don't judge him, it doesn't mean that you don't identify what it is, and it doesn't mean that you don't feel justice needs to be served. But what it means is that you look at why is he like that, and it's very, very simple. He is afraid. Everything that he has become and everything that you see his head in his hands on that video has happened because he's afraid. So you can come up with, no, it's because he's attracted to kids. Okay, but a consequence of him, why he's there, is because he was afraid of being on his own, of, you know, failure, of everything. He's afraid. There's two basic primary things, love and fear, and he's caught in fear. So why is he afraid all the time? Because he's had the choices to do better, and this always gets people angry. Well, you know, he had the choice to do better. You're condoning a paedophile. Well, did he ever have a chance with the upbringing that he had? This is why I like to delve further. How there's things that people... I think it was in what's the book called? The Four Agreements. Was it the Four Agreements? Someone suggested the book to me in a comment section of one of their videos, and one of these agreements, but it's like rules of life type thing, is that you always say the right thing to yourself and to other people. Choose your words carefully, which I try and do. And it says in that book that the wrong words uttered to a certain person at a specific time in their life could ruin the rest of their life. I really believe that. and that there's no way back. Lorne's got quite a low developmental level. There's a possibility there was like fetal alcohol syndrome or something like that. He didn't have any encouragement, I don't think, in the right way. I'm not going to go into this too much because we've done it in other videos, but this is why, it's very easy to just call him an out-and-out monster. It's like I said, doesn't mean we can't identify what he is, because that needs to be done, and it's already been done. But why did he end up as this fearful creature that gets everything wrong? His father left him. He had this relationship with a step-parent who might have treated him like shit. He got bullied by his siblings. He struggled to find any talents, anything he was specifically good at. He never had a girlfriend. He looks a bit odd. All of these things contribute towards this fearful feeling worthlessness that he had. So did he ever have a chance? Can you imagine if someone told him at some point in his life, that you're useless or you're stupid, or those words can affect you forever, and most people don't even know it. And the dysfunctional people that you meet in your life. Like I said, you've got to understand it's not a point of condoning people's actions. Probably the best way of saying it is you pray for them. What do you pray for? You pray for them to become a good person, for them to see the errors of their ways. It's easy for me to say this now. There are people in my life that affect it in a negative way, and I struggle to pray for them because I want them. There's part of me that wants them to fucking suffer because of what they've done to me. That is the true test of forgiveness, and I don't always do it. Sometimes I just can't. I try and I try and I try, and I know it's the right thing to do, but sometimes I fail more often than not. Luckily, there's not that many people that affect my life directly like that. But you get what I'm saying. So I hope you've enjoyed. This has probably been one of my sort of deeper sort of videos about Lorne, really. And I know I might be treading old ground, but this is kind of, I like these because it's kind of like, I know that every now and again I'll say something that someone gets something out of, and it's therapeutic from a selfish perspective. It's good for me to get all this out there, and I like, because I still get, one of the advantages of using my real sort of name on this, although there has been a lot of negatives, is that every now and again people will find me on Facebook and send me a message and say, your videos have helped me, thank you so much, blah 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 blah. And it's really great, to do that. I'm not going to go into details on what it is, but I kind of volunteer at a group that I attend every week to sort of help people. And the only reason I'm saying that is because there's a certain selfishness there. I like the fact that other people I can help people and not to not make the same mistakes I can, because I've developed a certain amount of wisdom, I'd like to think. It just makes, you've got to give something back, haven't you? Do you know what I mean? And then, of course, I might be doing a stream later where I'm just laughing at his lawsuits. So that's that balance of seriousness, giving something back, and just having fun. You've got to have fun. You've just got to. If having fun at Lorne's expense probably isn't the highest thing that a person can do, but so be it. Anyway, I hope that you've enjoyed this. I'd be interested to know if you have. So, I'll speak to you soon. Take it easy.